Hi everyone, this is the virtual walkthrough for the lesson TPCast with Genetics and Passed Down. This lesson will take you from Monday, April 6th through Wednesday, April 8th. This is going to be a walkthrough that goes into detail for each section, and I will pull up all of the links here so that you can see. I also have a second video posted that does not go into as much detail if you feel a little more confident doing this on your own. So right here, you see it says watch the short video introduction to TPCast. That's a video, it's about 8 minutes long. It's shorter than this one, and you can use that to go through the TPCast if you don't feel like you need to go through this in detail with me. I'm going to start with the learning objective for this particular lesson. Students will complete a TPCast analysis for 2 poems, both poems sharing similar topics, to demonstrate understanding of identifying the main idea, comprehending figurative and connotative language, interpreting theme, and the ability to compare and contrast to text. So this takes all the skills that we have been practicing over the last week or so and puts them all into one comparative assignment. The time frame for this, just so we're all very clear, no, you do not have to finish all of this in one day. That would be too much work. This is designed to take you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We suggest breaking it down into these 3 sections. And follow along with me here. Students have from Monday until Wednesday. We suggest completing the title, paraphrase, and connotative sections of both poems on Monday, April 6th. So that's the first 3 sections of the TPCast. And obviously we're going to go through what those sections are in more detail. Then we suggest completing the attitude, shift, theme, and title sections for both poems on Tuesday. So completing the second half of this. Yes, there are more sections, but they don't take as long to do. So having all 4 of those sections there actually is not more work on Tuesday. It's actually probably a little less. And then we suggest saving Wednesday to write the compare and contrast paragraph. It would be great to kind of take a little break from all the TP casting you've just done, let all the ideas sink in, and then write your paragraph on Wednesday. And if you need Wednesday, that won't take you the whole class period. If you need Wednesday to finish up any last things on your TP cast, you have that time available to you. So let's start with part 1. You're building background knowledge and context. So obviously, we need to know what TP cast stands for. You want to go into detail with me. I break down TPCast in this introduction to TPCast video. So you could pause this video and click that link and head on over. It'll take you, back to YouTube, and you can watch the TPCast in detail there. And I'm going to walk you through in this video the sample TPCast that we created last year for students, and I think it's a really good one. So you click that link and it should take you here. And this is with the Robert Frost poem called Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Some of you may have read this before. And we're going to start right now with title. That is the first part of a TPCast. Before you read the poems, think about the title. So for our 2 poems, Genetics and Passed Down, you want to stop and think about what that word genetics means. What do you think a poem titled Genetics is going to be about? And you might want to go back through what you've been learning in science, because I feel like you guys just did a unit on this. And then you want to look at the poem Passed Down, and you want to think about what that phrase passed down means. And that's something all of us have heard before, that something is passed down. And you have an advantage here because you have 2 poems together. So how might genetics and passed down actually help you understand what both of those poems could be about if you take those 2 titles together and compare them? So you can pause me right now if you want, and you can actually head on over to your TPCast lesson here. And if you go here to analyzing the text, there's a TPCast answer form. And you can click on that, and it's going to take you here. And then each poem is here. Genetics is on the first page. And then as we scroll down here, you'll see Passed Down is on that second page. And then that third section at the bottom has the comparison part that you'll do on Wednesday. But you can go ahead and do the title section for both of the poems because you're not supposed to read the poems yet. So pause the video right now and complete those two sections. Okay, now that those two sections are done, heading back over to our lesson and pulling up our sample, right? If you look at what we thought stopping by the woods on the snowy evening was going to be about, we thought that it might be about someone stopping or walking along some kind of path, stopping and just checking out and looking at these snowy woods that they're seeing. We thought maybe the title might make me picture tall trees covered in snow. Maybe there's some footprints because it does suggest maybe that someone was walking and then they stopped. And then we thought if it's snowing, maybe it's a dark, chilly evening if we're still able to see the snow. So we didn't just say, I think the title is going to be about snow. We actually went into good detail here and we wrote several sentences. The second part of the TP cast is the paraphrase. And of course, in order to do this, you're going to have to read your poems. So I would suggest doing this one poem at a time. So doing genetics, paraphrasing that, and then doing pass down and paraphrasing that. So heading back over to the lesson, if you click here, Genetics by Jacqueline Woodson, we've linked the poem to you. It should take you to the Poetry Foundation. And when you click that link, here you are. My mother has a gap between her two front teeth. So does Daddy Gunner. Each child in this family has the same space connecting us. Our baby brother Ronan was born pale as dust. His soft brown curls and eyelashes stop people on the street. Whose angel child is this, they want to know. When I say my brother, the people wear doubt, thick as a cape, until we smile and the cape falls. So that is the first poem. And then when you click the second link, right here, Passed Down by Clint Smith, it will take you here. And there's a little link here. You can learn a little bit more about Clint Smith if you'd like. Sometimes I forget there are freckles on my face. It's the sort of thing where I'm not always proud of my skin for being light enough to illuminate the patches of darkness that emerge from beneath it. A colony of inconsistent color spread out across my countenance, the remnants of colonialism in this double helix of a body. When I was younger, I was ashamed of my mother for her heirloom, of her cheeks, always wondering why she couldn't just keep them to herself. So once you've read both poems, then you can go back and you can paraphrase, and you're going to need to go one at a time. So here we show you how we've done this, and we have actually copied the original poem in, which you can also do as well. And then off to the side, we've paraphrased it. You can see we've sort of gone stanza to stanza. So the first stanza here, those 4 lines, and we wrote a paraphrase. Second stanza, 4 lines, we wrote another paraphrase, and so on and so on. And down at the bottom, we have unfamiliar words or phrases. And so we put in words that we weren't sure we knew, such as downy, harness, and queer. And we want to make sure we understood what those words mean, because when we're paraphrasing them, we want to make sure we're not just using the same words the poet did. We want to make sure that we are putting it truly in our own words. So I'm going to walk through one with you. Whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. It's already pretty easy to understand, but in our own words, we wrote, I know whose property this is, but they live in town, so they won't notice if I stop and watch the snow. You'll notice it's shorter and it's more succinct and it's much more simple. We've eliminated some of the imagery. We've taken away, in some of these stanzas, we've taken out the figurative language. You definitely want to make sure you don't repeat figurative language. If you're going to repeat the figurative language, then you need to put it in your own words. Unfamiliar words down here, you notice, for example, we noticed the word queer. We weren't sure what that meant, so we looked it up, and it means that something might be strange or odd or different. And so in the poem, when we go back up here, we chose to put in the word odd instead of queer. And so that's a good example of how you might take a synonym and substitute it in for that unfamiliar word. So go ahead and pause now and complete the paraphrase, and this should take you like 10 minutes for each poem. All right, coming back from the paraphrase, right, we are moving into the next section, and that is connotation. Now, connotation is going to take you some time. We did choose poems that are relatively short and they don't have a ton of figurative language in them. They have some nice images and some words that have connotative meaning, but it's not too heavy. It's not like every line is figurative. So what you're going to do here, you are examining the poem for meaning beyond the literal. So connotation covers imagery, figurative language, sound elements, and just looking at individual words and phrases for whether they are positive or negative in their depiction. So we started here with imagery, and we wrote in lines that helped us picture the setting. This poem is very strong in its imagery. I would also argue that Genetics by Jacqueline Woodson is very strong in its imagery as well. It almost depends on imagery entirely to convey the meaning of the poem. And we actually quoted the lines, and then underneath we wrote what we thought those lines added in terms of imagery to the poem. Down here in the figurative language section, right, we found some personification, and we wrote in the line and then we explained it. And then for sound elements, which is not something that we've done a lot with in the past week, but we did find in our poem examples of something called assonance and consonance. That's not something that you need to worry about. But if you see any alliteration, you might add that into sound elements, because we have talked about alliteration. And then here in this last section, this is where we found words that we thought had connotative meanings. So downy, we thought downy was a very positive word, and it meant something was soft and gentle, maybe welcoming and warm. So it gave this kind of poem about this chilly, cold evening kind of a sense of warmth, because if you think about like little chickens or little ducks, they all have these little downy feathers and they're very warm and very soft, and we could picture snow kind of floating down. An easy wind, we thought that was very positive. It was an interesting way to describe wind. He didn't just say there was a light breeze, which would be more common to say. He actually says an easy wind, and easy is a very soft word and it's very positive. And so we thought it softened the meaning of that. It softened the idea of the wind for us. It was very positive for us. Harness, we thought that had a negative connotation. Anytime you're harnessed, you're attached to something, you are constricted to something, you are tied down. Even though it's very common to have a harness on a horse, it does keep the horse in line and keep the horse on the path ahead. And then little horse, we liked that phrase as well, and we thought it had a positive connotation because it sounded kind of quaint. It was a very affectionate way of talking about the horse, my little horse, especially since he says my. So this is how you could use connotation. I would suggest finding 3 or 4 words within each poem that have a nice connotative meaning. So for example, going back to Genetics by Jacqueline Woodson, I love this idea of cape. What does a cape suggest? I think cape has an interesting connotation to it. When I think about capes, I think about magic, and she's sort of using it here as a magic trick, but there's more to it than that. I also like here, I love this phrase, pale as dust. Now that obviously also has a simile in it, so you could look at this as connotative language as well as simile. Dust here to me seems very positive, even though, you know, I've been cleaning my house a lot. Dust is definitely not something I enjoy, you know, dealing with, but here it actually sounds very nice. And then you could also look at words like curl, angel child, okay? Looking at Passed Down by Clint Smith, he's got a lot of great words here. Double helix, colonialism is definitely a word that I would look up and figure out what that means. Heirloom is a beautiful word to use here. Illuminating, okay, patches, colony, You could even do the whole phrase, colony of inconsistent color. So there's lots of connotative language